New York is the most exciting city in the world. It's a town of spectacular skyscrapers, millions of lights, and a rhythm that throbs 24 hours a day. This city has always had the greatest attractions, but New York has never seen anything like The Wiz, a new musical motion picture being made here that stars Diana Ross.
He's the Wiz and he lives in our...
I saw The Wiz and I couldn't get The Wiz off my mind. Something about it stuck. I guess the way the basic story is stuck in the minds of Americans since 1900, when L. Frank Baum wrote the book.
The book, entitled The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, continued to capture the hearts of Americans for succeeding generations. It became one of the 15 best-selling books of the 20th century. But that was only the beginning. 1903, an enormously successful stage production. 1906, an elaborate slideshow produced by L. Frank Baum himself. With the advent of motion pictures came an abundance of Oz films. A 1925 version starred Oliver Hardy as the Tin Man. And who'll ever forget the 1939 MGM musical version starring Judy Garland? In 1974, The Wiz opened on Broadway, winning 7 Tony Awards.
The first step was in trying to conceptualize how to make The Wiz a motion picture, which was a slow process. And as we were trying to work that out with the studio and with special effects and so on, I got a call. I was awakened at about 5 in the morning by a call from Berry Gordy. Diana Ross had just awakened him with this crazy notion that she should play Dorothy in The Wiz. And I said, what? 5 o'clock in the morning, she wants to play Dorothy in The Wiz? And by sunup, I thought it was a great idea. And by the afternoon, Diana Ross was playing Dorothy in The Wiz, and the deal was closed. And it was at that point that we began to look for a very, very major director to handle the project. It had grown from an idea of a small fantasy to a large major motion picture.
The director chosen was Sidney Lumet.
Sidney Lumet. He felt that today everybody lived in cities, and if we were going to make a modern Wizard of Oz, it would have to be urban. And since he's an inveterate, die-hard New Yorker, he wanted to do it based around New York.
Sidney talks about working with Diana Ross.
She's an extraordinary talent. She's a superb actress. The voice we know about, and yet her singing reached a depth and a bigness of voice, surely vocally, the size of what she hit, the notes that she hit for the first time in her life. She's a giant.
And just what's a Wiz? Is he big? Will he scare me? If I ask to leave, will the Wiz even hear me? How will I know that? If I ever get home again.
The Astoria Studios are really one of the most extraordinary movie-making facilities in the world. I don't know if you know it, it's the 6th largest soundstage in the world. It's got everything. It can handle 3 picture shooting simultaneously in terms of the number of stages. It's got 13 editing rooms. It's got an orchestra recording room. It's got a dubbing theater. It's got looping rooms. It's got commissary facilities. It's got its construction area. It's even got a back lot that's 2 square city blocks. So as a movie-making facility, it's one of the best in the world.
Michael Jackson began his career as the junior member of the Jackson 5. Their big break came when they were discovered by Diana Ross. In this film, he plays opposite her as the Scarecrow. The director talks about him.
Michael may be the purest talent I've ever seen. He's incapable of a false moment. He's so true that anything around him has to become true, or if you don't work honestly around him, you're going to look as if you're faking it.
You can win. The world keeps moving and you're standing far behind. People keep saying this
and you can't win, child. You can't break even. And you can't get out of the game. I'll help you down. What? You will?
Diana and Michael had a relationship in the past from their Motown days, and it shows in the film the kind of warmth and friendship between the two, which was very important to the relationship between Dorothy and the Scarecrow.
Come on, Dorothy! Come on! Come on, now, get on down the road. Come on, get on down the road. Don't you carry nothing that might be a load. Come on, get on down the road. Pick your left foot up, put your right one down. Come on, let's keep moving, don't you lose the ground. Just you keep on keeping on the road that you choose. Don't you give up on, don't you give up shoes.
And one day Sidney came in and said, "You know who should play the Tin Man?" I said, "I'm stumped on that one." He said, "Nipsey Russell." And it seemed like Nipsey Russell, the comedian. Well, the Tin Man, well, it's hard to know. So we had a reading. Nipsey came in. He had the entire part committed to memory, and he started to move. And he was so mechanical and so funny and yet so warm, he had the part.
Get on down the road. Get on down the road. Don't you carry nothing that might be a load. Come on, get on down the road. Come on.
I couldn't conceive of a lion other than Ted Ross, who had created the role and had won the Tony Award for the Broadway production of The Wiz. There was no one else who had that kind of bravura and that kind of... He becomes a lion in front of your very eyes.
Get on down the road. Don't you carry nothing that might be a load. Come on, get on down the road.
We decided the Emerald City we were going to build in the 8-square block plaza behind the World Trade Center. And to that, which might be the largest musical production scene ever done, it was huge. The whole scene was an incredible production in and of itself.
When we were shooting Emerald City, we had to place 22 playback speakers, hide them, design them into the set, because the dancers were so far apart that because of the speed at which sound travels, the dancers in the back would be hearing it close to a half second or 3/4 of a second later than the dancers in the front.
The logistics involved in creating a scene of this size and scope are monumental.
We had 400 dancers making 3 complete costume changes. That's 1,200 costumes. And I would think the crew for the 4 nights down there must have run over 1,000. Just the wardrobe handlers. I think we had over 120 wardrobe handlers. We were using 9 generators. We used 35,000 lamps down there.
The music of the film has been completely redone by Quincy Jones. Possibly, or at least in my opinion and in Sidney's opinion, the most talented arranger, composer, conductor, artist going today, and certainly the only one who could have handled the scope of The Wiz. There's one number
which states the whole theme of the movie, and comes just before the end, and it needed a great singer. And if you're going to talk about great singers, that's one choice, and that was Lena.
I want you to believe in yourself. Yes, right from the start. You got to believe in the magic right there in your heart. Go ahead, believe all these things, not because I told you to. No, go ahead, believe in yourself. Woo, yeah, believe in yourself. Woo, yeah, believe in yourself as I believe in you.
Nothing this large has ever been done in New York City in New York's history as far as films go. So in many ways, New York wasn't prepared for The Wiz. They certainly are now.
Everybody be glad, 'cause the sun is shining just for us. Everybody wake up into the morning into happiness. Hello.
Diana Ross, Sidney Lumet, a movie company, and the largest cast of musical performing talent ever assembled for a motion picture have turned New York City into a large-scale fantasy land with The Wiz.